The Kindling, a conflagration of contrasts. Before they were gods, they were just boys. This is the foundational tragedy, the truth often lost in the blinding glare of their fame. The brotherhood that would eventually burn so brightly it consumed itself was built not on similarity, but on a fascinating, almost magnetic opposition of souls. On one side was Xiao Zhan. A product of a traditional Chinese upbringing, he had walked the well-trodden path, university degree in design, a start in the corporate world. His was a life of delayed gratification. He understood the weight of expectations, the subtle art of social navigation. When he entered the entertainment industry through a talent show, he was already a man, his personality a carefully constructed edifice of warmth, patience, and a slightly weary maturity. His smile, though genuine, was a tool he had mastered, a disarming mechanism that hid an ocean of calculation and a deep-seated need for control. His life was ordered, almost fastidious, the apartment of a designer, where every object had its place, a silent rebellion against the chaos of fame. On the other side was Wang Yibo. He was a creature of a different ecosystem. Plucked from childhood and shipped to South Korea, his education was not in classrooms but in practice rooms. His world was one of relentless, brutal discipline. Not the discipline of theory, but of the body. He learned to speak through dance, to express through motion. By the time he met Xiao Zhan, he was a young man of few words, not out of shyness, but because his primary language was physical. His life was a series of immediate reactions, the adrenaline of a motorcycle race, the precise explosion of a dance move, the thrill of mastering a new skill like skateboarding. His world was not ordered, it was channeled. Control was not about managing surroundings, but about mastering his own physical vessel. The Untamed was the crucible that fused these two contrasting elements together. In the sweltering heat of that summer shoot, the boundaries blurred. Xiao Zhan, the older, found himself disarmed by Wang Yibo's blunt, unvarnished honesty. In a world of sycophants, here was someone who would tell him directly if a scene was bad. Wang Yibo, in turn, was drawn to Xiao Zhan's grounded stability. He saw in him a semblance of the normal life he had never had, a maturity that offered a strange kind of comfort. They were, for a fleeting moment, two halves of a whole. Xiao Zhan provided the emotional context Wang Yibo often skipped, while Wang Yibo offered a raw, impulsive authenticity that Xiao Zhan's carefully managed world lacked. Their off-screen life during this period was a series of unguarded moments that fans would later cling to as holy relics. Xiao Zhan, the former designer, critiquing Wang Yibo's outfit with a playful smirk. Wang Yibo, the dancer, trying to teach a rhythmically challenged Xiao Zhan a new routine, his frustration melting into laughter at his friend's clumsy attempts. They shared meals where Xiao Zhan would order extra spice, knowing Wang Yibo's preference, and Wang Yibo would silently push the best pieces of meat toward Xiao Zhan. This was the kindling of their brotherhood, not a business arrangement, but a genuine, if unlikely, connection. It was built on the simple, profound relief of finding someone who understands the unique pressure of your world. But kindling, by its very nature, is destined to burn. The fuel, the unbearable weight of stardom. The explosion of fame that followed the Untamed was not a gentle ascent. It was a violent catapult into the stratosphere. The intimate, self-contained world Xiao Zhan and Wang Yibo had built on set was suddenly ripped open, exposed to the blinding, unforgiving light of global scrutiny. Their brotherhood, once a private refuge, became public property. This is where their fundamental differences, once a source of attraction, became fault lines. The pressure manifested in ways that aligned perfectly with their core natures. For Xiao Zhan, the pressure was a constant, suffocating demand for perfection. His life became a series of calculations. Every word in an interview was weighed, every public appearance choreographed. The warm, easygoing man was forced to become even more guarded, his smiles more precise. His lifestyle contracted into a fortress. He moved through the world surrounded by a phalanx of assistants, his interactions reduced to a script. The artist in him, the part that craved genuine expression, was stifled by the brand he had become. The need for control, always present, became an obsession. He was trying to hold back an ocean with his bare hands, and the effort was etching itself into his face, the warmth in his eyes occasionally giving way to a flicker of profound fatigue. For Wang Yibo, the pressure was not something to be managed, but something to be outrun. His lifestyle became a whirlwind of hyperactivity. If he was constantly in motion, dancing on a stage, racing on a track, filming a movie, hosting a show, there was no time to stop and feel the weight. His response to the chaos was to create a different, more controlled kind of chaos. The boy of few words retreated further into a world of action. He embraced his endorsements for extreme sports not just as business, but as a necessity. On a motorcycle, the screaming fans, the demanding schedules, the incessant rumors, all of it faded into the roar of the engine. It was a solitary escape. Where he once might have shared a quiet moment with Xiao Zhan to decompress, that avenue was now closed, monitored by thousands of eyes. The very engine of their fame, the Bojun Yixiao narrative, became the poison. What was once an inside joke, a genuine camaraderie, was now a corporate mandate. Their agencies pushed for more interactions, but these interactions became strained, performative. The easy physicality they once shared was now analyzed for hidden meanings. A hand on a shoulder was no longer just a hand on a shoulder, it was a ship moment. The authenticity was gone, replaced by the palpable tension of two men aware that every glance was being recorded, interpreted, and commodified. They were trapped in a gilded cage of their own making. The brotherhood that had been their solace was now the source of their greatest professional constraint. To maintain individual identities, they had to subtly distance themselves from the coupledom. But every step away was seen as a betrayal by sections of their fanbase. They were damned if they did, and damned if they didn't. The fuel for the coming fire was this unbearable pressure, the slow erosion of a private bond under the relentless, crushing weight of public expectation. The spark, the incident, and the great silence. Every great fire needs a spark. The 227 incident was not just a spark, it was a lightning strike hitting a drought-stricken forest. It was the event that transformed the private strain into an public, unbridgeable chasm. The incident itself has been dissected endlessly. A fanfiction, an outraged faction of fans, a retaliatory reporting campaign that led to the blocking of a major international fan platform, and a resulting tsunami of online fury directed squarely at Xiao Zhan. His career was brought to the brink of obliteration. He vanished from public view, forced into a months-long hiatus that was less a break and more an exile. In this moment of existential crisis, the world watched Wang Yibo, and what it saw was silence. This silence was the crucible in which their brotherhood finally melted. From the outside, it was interpreted as betrayal, cowardice, or cold calculation. But to understand the tragedy, one must imagine the internal reality for both men. For Xiao Zhan, isolated and under siege, the silence from his former brother would have been deafening. In his fortified apartment, surrounded by a team in crisis management mode, the absence of a private message, a public word of support, anything, would have been a wound more painful than any online attack. It would have forced him to re-examine every moment of their friendship. Was it all a performance? Was their bond just a transactional part of the show? The bitterness wouldn't have been about professional strategy. It would have been the deeply personal hurt of feeling abandoned by someone he trusted when he was at his most vulnerable. For Wang Yibo, the silence was likely a complex prison of his own. His entire life had been about action, not words. To speak out would be to step into the center of a hurricane. His advisors, his agency, would have presented him with a brutal risk assessment. Any statement could be misconstrued, could inflame the situation further, could implicate him in a scandal he had no part in starting. The disciplined soldier in him, trained to follow orders and protect the unit, which now was his own career, would have counseled silence. But the friend, the brother, would have screamed in protest. Imagine him on a racetrack, pushing his bike to its limit, trying to outrun the guilt, the frustration, the helplessness of being unable to defend a friend without making everything worse. His lifestyle of extreme sports became not just an escape, but the only outlet for a turmoil he could not express. The great silence that fell between them was not merely a public relations strategy, It was the sound of a bond breaking. It was the realization that their friendship could not survive the monstrous ecosystem it had helped create. The roles they were assigned by fate: Xiao Zhan, the thoughtful survivor, Wang Yibo, the relentless competitor, precluded the possibility of a heroic, public stand. The spark of the 227 incident did not just ignite a fan war, it ignited the very foundation of their brotherhood, and it burned with a cold, silent fury. The aftermath: living in the ashes. The fire eventually burned itself out. Xiao Zhan, through a combination of fierce loyalty from his core fanbase and sheer resilience, staged one of the most remarkable comebacks in modern entertainment. Wang Yibo solidified his status as an unstoppable force in multiple fields. They both survived, even thrived. But the Brotherhood was gone, leaving behind only ashes and ghosts. Their lives today are a study in parallel existence, a permanent state of Cold War meticulously maintained. They are two kings ruling adjacent kingdoms, separated by a wall so high it blocks out the sun. Their lifestyles have hardened into the very extremes that once defined them. Xiao Zhan's world is one of impeccable, elegant control. His projects are carefully curated, his public appearances masterclasses in gracious, yet distant, professionalism. The warmth is still there, but it is now a universal warmth, evenly distributed, never focusing too long on any one person. He is surrounded by a small, trusted circle, a fortress built on the lessons of betrayal. He designs, he paints, he acts, activities that require solitude and control. The chaotic, impulsive energy of a former friend has no place in this meticulously reconstructed life. Wang Yibo's world is one of perpetual motion. His schedule is a blur of filming, dancing, racing, and hosting. He is a phenomenon of pure output. The silence that surrounds him is no longer that of a shy young man, but of a general who communicates through action, not words. His happiness is found in the visceral thrill of speed and the precise execution of a plan. The grounded, calming influence of a former brother has been replaced by the roar of an engine and the adrenaline of competition. When their paths inevitably cross at major events, it is a chilling spectacle. The avoidance is not awkward. It is deliberate, sophisticated, and absolute. Their body language is studied by fans and detractors alike. The slight turn of a shoulder, the careful direction of a gaze. It is a silent performance more telling than any confrontation. There is no hatred in their eyes. That would require an energy they can no longer afford to expend on each other. Instead, there is a profound emptiness, a void where a vibrant connection once lived. The tragedy is not that they became enemies. The true tragedy is that they became strangers. The Brotherhood did not collapse in a dramatic explosion of shouting and accusations. It collapsed in a whisper, in the silence of an unanswered message, in the slow, painful realization that the world they built together had become a prison they could only escape alone. They live now in the ashes of that friendship, two of the most famous men in Asia, forever bound by a history that burns too brightly to ever be spoken of again. The fire is out, but the scorched earth remains.